Hello everyone and welcome to the final round of the Russian Chess Championship. We mentioned in the previous video that it will be, basically either Karjakin or Jan Nepomniachtchi who wins the Russian Chess Championship, and Nepomniachtchi drew his last game to Maxim Chigaev, and now we'll have to see what happens in the game Dubov versus Karjakin. If Karjakin gets a draw against Dubov with the black pieces, then he and Nepo go into tie breaks, and if Karjakin by any chance wins with the black pieces, then he is the winner of the Russian Chess Championship 2020. So let's see what happens here. As the title suggests, this is quite a beauty. So Dubov again with the white pieces opens with e4. Sorry about that. We have e5 by Karjakin, and now knight to f3. We have knight to c6, bishop to c4, and bishop to c5. And I know what you're thinking. The last round of the Russian Championship 2020, we definitely must play the Evans Gambit here, but unfortunately it was not played in this game. However, you'll see what happens. We have c3, so the main line of the Giuoco Piano, knight to f6, and now d4. Striking in the center, e captures on d4, and now the normal thing to do here is just c captures on d4. This is the absolute top move here, but we have b4 by Dubov. So on move 6, Dubov does go for b4, and we are going to call this the delayed Evans Gambit, as it offers quite amazing play for white. So let's see what happens here. Bishop back to b6, and now e5, challenging the knight on f6. And now the problem is, while usually in positions like these, when white gives up the d4 pawn, plays e5, black will almost always play d5. It's just the best thing to do. However, the problem here with the inclusion of b4 is that after captures and capture, you have this b5 move, and then it's very tricky to play this for black, especially if you don't have this prepared, and Dubov obviously does have this prepared. Even though it's a classical game, it's still super complicated, and you're gonna burn a lot of time to figure out what happens here. So basically you're removing the knight away from c6, the e5 square will not be available to the knight, the e7 square is not available, you have to go all the way back, and then it's just very hard to play this for black. So instead, after e5, we have knight to e4 by Karjakin, just keeping it simple, and now bishop to d5, attacking the knight here. So knight captures on c3, attacking the queen, and now we have a trade here. Captures, and now there is one game in the database where castles was played, but here we have bishop to g5 by Dubov, and it's already as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So of course the black queen is under attack, you need to block this. You do not want to play something like f6, it just opens up the position too much. f6, bishop h4, and you're never castling here anymore. So instead, after bishop g5, knight to e7. And now here we have castles by white, and here h6, challenging the bishop to h4, and now comes finally castles by black. And now, okay, you don't want to lose your light square bishop, so bishop back to b3, but before that, rook to e1. So the bishop still cannot be captured due to this pin, and basically Dubov is asking Karjakin with every move, are you going to play g5? And Karjakin, reluctant to play it, he unpins. He goes queen to e7, and now the bishop can finally be captured, so bishop back to b3. And if you look at this position, white is up in development immensely, but black is up 2 pawns. So if black is able to make something out of those 2 pawns and get his pieces developed, then black should of course have a great advantage. So here the immediate a5, saying okay, I either capture here and then have a connected and guarded passed pawn here on c3, and I get a semi-open file for my rook, or you capture and then we just continue the game. But here comes another great move by Dubov, bishop to f6, and now it is just a beautiful move. The bishop pair slicing all the way to the king side. Of course, you cannot capture it because after pawn captures, you will not be able to move the knight, and it's just game over for black. So instead, after this bishop to f6 move, we have a4. Now, trying to get the bishop away from this diagonal, we have bishop back to c4, and now comes knight to g6. Finally, the knight comes into play, but now queen to d3. Again, Dubov moves with tempo, as now the threat is just queen captures on g6. You cannot capture with the f-pawn because the f-pawn is pinned. You could capture on f6, but it's again a very I mean, it's the same idea, just queen captures on g6 and white gets checkmated. King here captures here with check, king back, queen to e captures on f6, and now it's either queen g7 checkmate, or you lose the queen, or both, as you know, it's impossible to get away from checkmate here. So after queen d3, of course, you have to do something about this. So d5. Now, of course, you cannot capture because the pawn blocks the bishop's path. But here comes e captures on d6 en passant, and bishop to e6. Now, Karjakin offers some material back to get his pieces developed, but there's a problem. Of course, Dubov doesn't go for something like bishop captures on c3 or bishop captures on e6. Feel free to pause the video and try to find this amazing move Dubov played here while I give you a couple of seconds. You know, have at it. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on figuring out that it's actually the position from the thumbnail. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen captures on g6. A beautiful queen sacrifice, and it seems it doesn't matter that Karjakin blocked the path, since now there's not all that much to be done here, because if you ignore the queen sacrifice, you play something, you can't even do anything. If you play something like bishop captures, then queen captures on g7 is checkmate. So the queen absolutely must be accepted. So f captures on g6, and now comes rook captures on g6. And here the problem is Karjakin's queen is under attack, and if the rook moves, then it's going to be a discovered check. So you have to be very careful what you play here. If queen d7, just rook e7, a discovered check, you win back the queen, and then you quickly win the game. So Karjakin plays the only good move here for black, and that is queen to f7. Now blocking the path, and here you could still win the queen. However, if you go for something like rook to e4 to guard the bishop here, then we would see g captures on f6, bishop captures, rook captures, and we would get to this position where black is just better. White doesn't really have much to show for, and it would be pointless to do this. So Dubov plays the absolute best move, bishop captures on c3. He gets the bishop out of the way. Next, he wants to get his rook to e7 and get some pressure going towards this g7 pawn. However, it also means that black gets to keep his queen. So king to, not king to h7, king to h8, moving the king, and then now comes, well, you want to get your rook to e7, but you also don't want to give up the light square bishop. So first rook to e4, attacking the queen by the bishop, and now defending the bishop with the rook. So the queen has to move, and you cannot keep your queen on this diagonal. So here queen to f5 is played, and only now Dubov goes rook to e7. And now the g7 pawn is under attack, and not a lot for Karjakin to do here. He played rook to g8. He has to give up one of the rooks. Bishop captures. We have rook captures on g8, and now even d captures on c7, creating a passed pawn on c7. And for the moment, yes, the rook is guarding that square, but that can easily change. A move like rook captures could easily end the game. Rook captures, queen comes into the game. Of course, not while the queen is covering the c8 square as well, but something to keep in mind with black. So queen to c2, putting pressure on the bishop. Also, if the bishop moves on a, well, not on some square that isn't best, then also there will be a double attack on the c7 pawn. But there's not much to think about here, just bishop to e5, and now the pawn is defended twice. So here, bishop captures on f2. You could also capture with the queen, although after king to h1, there's no good continuation here. So instead, bishop captures on f2 with check, king h1, and now bishop back, forcing this rook to remain here. Otherwise, rook and bishop, otherwise you're going to lose the c7 pawn. So h3, Dubov makes some room for his king, and now king to h7. And now rook to e1, bringing the rook into the game. And now the rooks are doubled, when the bishop moves, it's going to be very hard for black to hold this. So here, you have to be careful. If you go for the pawn, try and create a passed pawn. Try to grab one of white's passed pawns. Then comes just bishop captures on g7. And there's no way to hold this. Once you capture it, just a queen gets into the game. So after rook to e1, you play a3, e3. This is what Karjakin played, and then now comes king to h2. We have g5, creating some breathing room for the king, but still knight to d4, attacking the queen and preparing to bring a third attacker to the g7 pawn. Not a lot for Karjakin to do here. We have queen to c4 and now knight to f5. And now with the triple attack here, it's only a matter of time before the position cracks. We have queen captures on b4 and now rook to c1. Now the queening square is defended, and not a lot for black to do here. You could always give up the bishop for the pawn, but then it's a queen and rook against rook, bishop, and knight, and this will fall. So it's nothing to look forward to. So king g6, Karjakin uses his last resort move to go after the knight on f5, but Dubov even encourages it. So rook captures on g7. And now if rook captures, of course you just bring the queen into the game because the rook no longer covers the c8 square. So instead we have king captures on f5, but now rook captures on g8. And now of course you are ready to bring the rook into the game. So bishop captures on c7, one last try, bishop captures, and then now queen to b2, attacking the rook here, but we have rook to c5 check, king to e4, and now just rook to d8, and it was in this position that Sergey Karjakin resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The king really has no good squares, and even if you capture the pawn, it's just a very nice mate into rook e5 check, king to f4, and rook to d4 checkmate. The pawn covers the f3 square, and there is nowhere for you to go with your king. So yeah, with this rook to d8 move, Dubov won the game and robbed Karjakin of his chances of winning his first ever Russian championship. So it was really crazy. Karjakin only needed a draw, and maybe that's why he played so passively, because he was probably thinking, okay, I'm just gonna hold, and then if Dubov pushes too hard, I'm gonna punish him. Because like I said, if he got a draw, then he would go into tie breaks against Yanni Pomnishi, but Dubov completely mowed him over with that delayed Evans Gambit. And yes, we are calling it the delayed Evans, so do tell your friends about that. So yeah, this is the game. Not only the best game of this championship, but also, not gonna say the best game of the year, but that whole performance by Dubov, I'm pretty sure it's one of the top 5 games played in 2020. We'll see what the official people think about that. But yeah, so that's the game. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna check that move out one more time before we end the video. So bishop g5, and then we have this beauty here. There we go, bishop here, and now in slow motion, let's just check it out. Queen comes, and then queen captures on g6. Beautiful stuff. So yeah, once again, I do hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to cover a few more games, as we haven't shown a single game by the winner other than the one he lost, so we will show one game that he actually won. I would like to thank Kasper Clay Cooler, Cameron O'Mara Hill, Nelson NG, Avery and Josh Atkins, and Kalman D for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage. Not the coverage, but a few more games maybe by the winner himself, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.